Have you heard? London's gone all knife crazy and only stop and search can put an end to it. As of the 9th of April, at least 35 people have been fatally stabbed in London since the start of 2018. Our capital city is quickly resembling a third world war zone. In fact, in one of my first videos for Rebel way back in January, I discussed exactly this, about how knife crime is significantly more prevalent in our capital city than anywhere else in the country. And now, our murder rate is higher than New York. And with ever more political pressure mounting on him every day, Sadiq Khan's been forced to take action. Khan thinks that he can stop criminals carrying knives by just telling those criminals that it's against the law to carry knives. Yeah, because criminals have only been stabbing and killing people because they thought it was legal. Khan said on Twitter that there's no excuses and never a reason to carry a knife. Well, to be honest, at this rate, I feel like there is. If you follow me, you probably know that I'm not really the biggest fan of guns, but in a city as unsafe as London, which has become dangerous because of ethno-cultural conflict in gangs, what's a person meant to do when they can't protect themselves? Guns are illegal, pepper spray's illegal. What is a small woman meant to do when she's presented with a large man with a knife? Is she going to roundhouse kick him? If there's a time when people might feel like carrying a weapon for defense is appropriate, it's now, when record numbers of people are being fatally stabbed. What the hell are people meant to do? But you know, this hasn't been created just by Sadiq Khan though. London's been welcoming in some of the worst quality immigrants for years. And the Grenfell Tower incident showed just how willing the government is to not only hide the presence of illegal immigrants in the capital city, but also how easy it is for them to sign over citizenship to them. And as the population in London has grown, ethnocultural gangs have formed and disproportionately affected young black men. Poverty's worsened, the housing shortage has caused panic, and people have just been left feeling hopeless. London's become a breeding ground for crime. This never had to happen. London didn't have to become a city where people were worried about getting stabbed, or a city where people had to worry about how they were going to protect themselves on the street. This was avoidable, and now we're facing a shocking and awful reality. We're now faced with policies like knife control, increased presence of police on the streets, and reversing Sadiq Khan's promise of getting rid of stop and search. And while in an ideal world, I'd rather we didn't have police acting as keepers of the peace on each street corner, it looks like it's necessary. Khan campaigned against stop and search back in 2015 and later set out a plan that claimed stop and search must not be based on profiling, and instead on actual intelligence, which just defeats the purpose of stop and search entirely. Instead of giving police the power to randomly stop and search people who fit the typical description of criminals in an area prone to crime, police need actual intelligence. Through stop and search, gang members and people planning criminal acts who might have been unknown to the police can actually be caught. And without it, Khan's new knife control regulations seem pointless. The London Mayor has announced a new knife control measure that involves 300 additional police officers being placed in the most crime-ridden neighbourhoods of London. That's 1/3 of the amount of police officers that he has dedicated to hate crime, by the way. And no matter how hard these police officers work, they're not going to be able to catch these knife wielders unless they have intelligence to suggest that the person's carrying one. So how exactly is this thing going to work? This video asks whether Sadiq Khan is U-turning on stop and search, and well, he isn't really. Yes, the mayor has called for more stop and searches to tackle the spike in crime, but these searches are to be performed within the parameters he set out in 2016, which means it's not stop and search at all. It's just police officers doing the best they can on limited actual intelligence. Now, targeted stop and search, as he calls it, isn't stop and search, it's just regular policing, and London is well past regular old policing. If Khan wasn't such a politically correct sissy, he'd implement full stop and search that could turn London around like that, in the same way that Giuliani cleaned up New York City as a part of his zero tolerance policy on crime. When he was mayor of NYC, Giuliani implemented a stop and frisk policy. So people were stopped and questioned over 4 million times between 2004 and 2012, and yeah, it was based on profiling, but most of them weren't even searched. And homicide numbers fell from 2,605 in 1990 to 951 in 2001. In 1990, there were over 500,000 serious crimes in New York. This was reduced to just over 100,000 in 2011. So Giuliani's tough stance on crime cleaned up the city, and it's been replicated elsewhere too. A Harvard study found that a surge in stops by the LAPD under the policing of Chief William Bratton from 2002 correlated with a massive reduction in crime. And that's what London needs. We can't go back in time, boy I wish we could, but London's been dropped in at the deep end, and if Sadiq really wants to remedy this problem, if he wants to roll back the effects of his party's disastrous policies in London, and by the way the policies of the former Conservative Mayor Boris Johnson, who was hardly any better, then he needs to grow a pair, implement stop and search properly, and a zero tolerance approach to crime that also involves a more sensible allocation of police funding and resources. Stop wasting time on hate crimes and round up the gangsters in London. Watch me and the rest of the Rebel team on our brand new app. Download it now from the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store.